My name is Mira. I was once a happy woman. I had a small, simple, beautiful life. I was married to the man I loved with all my heart. His name was Arjun. He wasn't rich, but he was kind, funny, and full of love. We laughed a lot. We talked about silly things. We dreamed about our future together. We didn't have children yet. We wanted to wait until life became a little more stable. Arjun worked as a manager at a small shop. I stayed at home and took care of everything else. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And with him, I was truly happy. Then one rainy night, everything changed. Arjun was coming home from work on his bike. The road was dark and wet. A truck came from the wrong side, too fast. It hit him. He died on the spot. When I got the call, I didn't believe it. I thought it had to be a mistake. With shaking hands and a crying heart, I ran to the hospital. But it was true. He was gone. Forever. The weeks that followed were filled with silence. No laughter. No smiles. No reason to wake up. The house felt cold and empty. His clothes were still there. His slippers. His toothbrush. Everything except him. Every night I cried. I asked God why. But there was no answer. I had no job. No steady income. Our small savings disappeared quickly. Rent, food, electricity. Everything needed money. I told myself I had to be strong. I told myself I had to live. One day, I opened an old diary from my college days. Inside it, I found a forgotten dream. I wanted to become a teacher. I loved reading. I loved writing. I loved explaining things to others. And for the first time in a long while, I thought, maybe this is the time. Maybe I should try. I gathered my certificates, ironed my simple sari, and walked into a small private school near my house. It was called Sunrise Academy. My hands trembled as I entered. The principal, a kind woman in her 50s, looked at my papers. "Have you ever taught before?" she asked. "No," I said softly, "but I want to try." She smiled. "You have a good degree. We need teachers. You can start tomorrow." Just like that. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was nervous, but inside me, a small light had turned on. Like a candle. Like hope. The next day, I entered the school as a teacher. Children looked at me with curious eyes. Some smiled. Some whispered. I smiled back. I introduced myself and began teaching English. At first, my hands shook while writing on the board. But slowly, day by day, I found my rhythm. The children liked me. They called me Miss Mira. Their smiles gave me strength. One afternoon during lunch break, I saw him. He was sitting under a tree in the school garden, eating a sandwich and reading a book. He looked young. Messy hair. A warm, gentle smile. I sat on a nearby bench. He looked up. "Hi. You're the new English teacher, right?" "Yes," I said, smiling politely. "I'm Karen. I teach science." We shook hands. His hand was warm, different from Arjun's, but comforting in its own way. "Do you like it here?" he asked. "I think I do. The kids are sweet." He laughed. "Sometimes they're monsters, but good monsters." I laughed too. It felt strange, laughing again after so long. But it felt nice. After that, we talked often. During breaks. Sometimes after school. Just small things, books, movies, classes. Nothing serious. But slowly, I started waiting for those conversations. I liked the way he listened, the way he smiled. He never asked about my past. And somehow I was grateful for that. One rainy afternoon, I stood by the window, watching the rain. It reminded me of the night our June died. My heart grew heavy. I didn't realize Karen was behind me. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. I wiped my eyes. "Yes, rain just makes me sad sometimes." He didn't ask more. He just stood beside me and said, "Sometimes rain brings new things too." His words stayed with me. I began noticing him more. His kindness, the way he helped students, the way he smiled at the old security guard. He wasn't loud or showy. He was simply good. One day, he gave me a small yellow flower. "No reason," he said. "Just felt like it." I smiled. But inside, fear grew. I was a widow. He was younger. What would people say? What if I got hurt again? Still, my heart was changing. Slowly, beat by beat. One evening after school, we were walking together. The road was quiet. He stopped suddenly. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "Are you married?" The question froze me. "I was," I said softly. "My husband died last year." He looked sad. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "It's okay," I whispered. After a pause, he said, "You're strong, Mira. I don't know your full story, but I can see it in your eyes." That night, I looked at Arjun's photo. "Can I love again?" I whispered. I didn't know the answer, but my heart had begun to feel again, something warm, something gentle, like spring after a long winter. Months passed. I still missed Arjun, especially at night. His photo still stood beside my bed. But my days were filled with laughter now, with children calling Miss Mira, with quiet talks under the school tree. One evening after a school event, Karen walked beside me under the stars. "There's something I want to tell you," he said. His voice trembled. "I like you. I care about you. I wait to see you every day. I don't want to rush you, but I had to say it." I thought of Arjun. Then I remembered his words long ago. "If something ever happens to me, don't cry forever. Smile again. Share your love." I smiled at Karen. "You didn't scare me," I said softly. I was afraid too, but my heart is ready now. From that day, love grew quietly between us. Later, he came to my house with his mother. She held my hand and said, "My son is lucky to have found you." Months later, Karen and I married. A simple ceremony. No big crowd. Just love. The school children came with handmade cards. One said, "Miss Mira and Sir Karen, please always be happy." We both cried. Now every morning, I wake up holding a warm hand. I teach. I love. I live. My name is Mira. I lost love once, but I found it again. Sometimes the heart breaks, not to end love, but to make space for a new one. 2 years passed after our marriage. Life did not become perfect, but it became full. Full of small joys. Full of shared responsibilities. Full of quiet understanding. Karen never tried to replace Arjun. He never touched Arjun's photo on my bedside table. One evening, he simply asked gently, "Do you want to keep it there?" I looked at the photo for a long time. Yes, I said. He was part of my life. Karen nodded. Then he stays. In that moment, I knew I had chosen a good man again. One winter morning, I felt dizzy while teaching. The classroom started spinning. The children's voices sounded far away. Miss Mira, are you okay? One student asked. I smiled weakly. I'm fine. But I wasn't. Karen rushed me to the clinic after school. We sat side by side, silent. My heart was beating fast. The doctor came out with a soft smile. Congratulations, she said. You're going to be parents. I froze. Parents? Tears filled my eyes. Karen looked at me, his face pale at first, then glowing. Really? He whispered. The doctor laughed. Yes. Really. When we stepped outside, the world looked different. Brighter. Warmer. Karen held my shoulders gently. Mira, we're going to have a baby. I nodded, crying and laughing at the same time. For years, I had felt something missing, not because of loneliness, but because of unfinished dreams. Now, life was giving me another chance. During my pregnancy, Karen became even more caring. He cooked when I felt tired. He reminded me to take medicine. He talked to my stomach every night. Hello, little scientist, he would say. Or maybe little English teacher. I would laugh. Sometimes, late at night, I would still think of our June. And strangely, I no longer felt only pain. I felt gratitude. He had loved me deeply. And because of that love, I had learned how to love again. 9 months later, on a soft spring morning, our daughter was born. She had tiny fingers, soft black hair, and loud, powerful cries. When the nurse placed her in my arms, my heart overflowed. Karen stood beside me, tears running down his face. She's perfect, he whispered. We named her Asha. It means hope, because that's what she was. Hope after loss. Light after darkness. Spring after winter. One evening, months later, I sat in the garden holding Asha. The sky was painted orange and pink. Karen brought tea and sat beside me. Are you happy? He asked softly. I looked at my daughter, at my husband, at the small house filled with laughter again. Yes, I said. I am. Life had broken me once. It had taken away my first love. It had left me in silence. But it also taught me something important. Love does not end. It changes. It grows. It returns in new forms. My name is Mira. I have loved twice. I have cried deeply. I have healed slowly. And now, I live fully, because sometimes, after the heaviest storm, life gives you a rainbow you never expected. Years passed quietly. Asha grew from a tiny baby into a cheerful little girl with bright eyes and endless questions. Every morning she would run into our room and jump on the bed. Good morning, Amma.
Good morning, Baba.
Karen would pretend to sleep. Who is this noisy monkey? He would say. And she would laugh loudly. Our house was no longer silent. It was filled with crayons on the floor, storybooks on the sofa, and tiny shoes near the door. Sometimes I would stand in the kitchen doorway and just watch them. Karen helping Asha with her science homework. Asha explaining English poems to him in a serious teacher voice. And my heart would whisper, "Thank you." One evening, when Asha was 5 years old, She found our June's photo. It was in my cupboard, carefully kept in a small wooden frame. Amma, she asked innocently, who is this uncle? My breath stopped for a moment. Karen looked at me gently, giving me space. I sat beside her. He was someone very important in my life, I said softly. He was kind, and he loved me very much. Where is he now? She asked. He lives in the sky, I said, touching her hair. Among the stars. She looked up at the ceiling as if she could see them. Then we should say thank you to him, she said seriously, because he helped you become you. Tears filled my eyes. Children understand things in the purest way. That night, Karen held my hand. You handled that beautifully, he said. I was scared of this day, I admitted. You don't have to erase your past to love your present, he replied. His words wrapped around me like warmth. At school, my life continued to grow too. I was no longer the nervous new teacher at Sunrise Academy. I had become one of the senior teachers. Students came to me not only for grammar and essays, but for advice, comfort, and courage. Sometimes, I would see a quiet girl sitting alone in the playground. I would sit beside her and say, "Tell me what's in your heart," because I knew what silence felt like. I knew what pain looked like behind smiling eyes. And I wanted to be the person I once needed. One rainy afternoon, many years after that terrible night, I stood again by a window, watching the rain fall. But this time I was not alone. Asha stood beside me, pressing her little hand against the glass. Rain is pretty, she said. Yes, I smiled. Rain no longer meant only loss. It meant growth. It meant new beginnings. It meant life continuing. Karen came and wrapped his arms around us both. What are my two girls thinking about? He asked. About rain, Asha said proudly. He laughed. Rain brings new things. I looked at him. Those were the same words he had once told me. And now I finally understood them completely. That night, after Asha slept, I took out my old college diary again. The same diary where I had once written, I want to become a teacher. Under it, I wrote something new. I want to live bravely, no matter what life brings. Because life will always bring change. Sometimes it brings heartbreak. Sometimes it brings unexpected love. Sometimes it brings both. My name is Mira. I lost a husband. I found love again. I became a mother. I became stronger than I ever imagined. And if my daughter ever asks me one day, Amma, what is life? I will tell her, life is not about avoiding storms. It is about learning to dance in the rain. Time has a quiet way of moving forward. Asha turned 10. She was no longer the little girl who needed help tying her shoes. Now she tied mine when I felt tired. She loved reading just like me, and she loved science just like Karen. Sometimes she would sit between us on the sofa, holding two different books. Amma, listen to this poem. Baba, did you know stars die too? We would look at each other and smile. She was a perfect mix of both of us. One day, her school announced a family day. Parents were invited to speak about life experiences. Asha came home excited. Amma, Baba, you both have to come. And Amma, you must speak. Speak about what? I asked. About strength, she said confidently. You always tell your students to be brave. Tell everyone. Her words made my heart nervous.
My story was not simple.
It had pain in it, but it also had hope. After thinking for many nights, I agreed. On family day, I stood on the small school stage. Parents sat in rows of chairs. Children whispered and giggled. Karen and Asha sat in the front row. Asha gave me a thumbs up. I took a deep breath. My name's Mira, I began. I was not always this strong. The hall grew quiet. I once lost someone I loved very much. I thought my life had ended. I thought happiness would never return. I saw some parents nod slowly. But life surprised me. It gave me another chance. Not to replace the past, but to build a new future. I looked at Karen. He smiled gently. Strength is not about never crying, I continued. It is about crying and still choosing to wake up the next day. My voice shook, but I did not stop. Sometimes the heart breaks to teach us how deep it can love. When I finished, there was silence for a second. Then applause. Not loud and wild, but warm.
Real.
Asha ran onto the stage and hugged me tightly. That's my Amma, she shouted proudly. And I laughed through my tears. That night, after dinner, Asha asked a question. Amma, were you scared to love Baba? I looked at Karen. Yes, I answered honestly. I was very scared. Then why did you? She asked. Because love is not about being fearless, I said softly. It is about being brave enough to try again. She thought about that carefully. Then she nodded as if she understood something important. Years passed again. Asha became a teenager. Our homes saw new challenges. Mood swings, exam stress, dreams about the future. But through everything, we stayed close. One evening, Asha came to me quietly. Amma, I think I like someone. I smiled gently. Does he make you feel respected? I asked. She nodded. Does he make you feel safe? Yes. Then take your time, I said. Love should feel like peace, not pressure. Karen later whispered to me, half joking, half worried, I'm not ready for this. I laughed. You'll survive. On my 50th birthday, Karen did something unexpected. He gathered my old students, many of them now grown adults. They came to our house with flowers and letters. One of them said, Miss Mira, you once told me that pain is not the end of the story. Because of you, I didn't give up. Another said, you taught me grammar, but more importantly, you taught me courage. I held those letters in my hands, overwhelmed. I had once felt so empty, so broken, and now my life had touched others. That night, sitting under the same kind of starry sky where Karen had once confessed his love, he held my hand. Are you happy? He asked again like he did years ago. I looked at the house filled with laughter, at my daughters studying inside, at the man who stood beside me through everything. Yes, I whispered. I am deeply happy. My name is Mira. I have lived through loss. I have lived through fear. I have lived through love twice. And if life ever tests me again, I know this now. The heart is stronger than we think. It can break. It can heal. It can love again. And as long as it keeps loving, life will always be beautiful. Time, once again, moved faster than I expected. Asha finished school. The little girl, who once believed people lived among the stars, now spoke about universities, careers, and changing the world. One evening, she came home with shining eyes. Amma, Baba, I got in. Got in where? Karen asked nervously. She held up the letter. She had been accepted to a university in another city. For a moment, I felt two emotions at the same time.
Pride and fear.
My baby was growing wings. The day we dropped her at the hostel, I tried to stay strong. I arranged her books. I folded her clothes again, even though she had already done it. I checked the window lock twice. Amma, she laughed gently. I'll be fine. Karen cleared his throat to hide his tears. When it was time to leave, she hugged us tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. On the way home, the car felt too quiet. The house felt bigger. Her room felt frozen in time. I stood at her doorway that night, remembering her first steps, her first school day, her first heartbreak. Karen came and stood behind me. We did well, he said softly. Yes, I nodded. We did. With Asha away, life changed again. Just Karen and me. 2 cups of tea instead of 3. 2 plates at dinner. More silence, but not the painful kind. The peaceful kind. We began taking evening walks together.
Sometimes we talked about the past.
About our June. About our early days at school. About how scared I had been to love again. Do you regret it? Karen asked one night. Regret what? Choosing me. I stopped walking and looked at him. Never, I said firmly. You didn't replace my past. You helped me build my future. He smiled the same warm smile I had first seen under that school tree. One rainy afternoon, so many years after everything began, I received a call from Asha. Her voice trembled. Amma, I failed an important exam. I closed my eyes gently. I feel like I disappointed you, she whispered. I remembered standing in a hospital hallway once, thinking my life was over. I remembered feeling empty and lost. My dear, I said softly, failure is not the end. It is only a pause. But it hurts, she said. Yes, I replied. It always does. But pain teaches us strength. Trust me. There was silence. Then she said, You always know what to say. I smiled, because once I had known nothing. Life had been my teacher. Years later, Asha graduated. We sat in the audience, holding hands as her name was called. She walked across the stage, confident, graceful. When she spotted us in the crowd, she smiled the same smile she had as a child. And in that moment, I understood something deeply. Life is not about avoiding loss. It is about continuing despite it. Now my hair has threads of silver. My hands have small lines that tell quiet stories. Arjun's photo still rests in a drawer. Sometimes I take it out, not with pain, but with respect. He was my first chapter. Karen is my long, beautiful second one. And Asha, she is the bridge between all my tomorrows. Tonight, I sit by the window again. Rain falls softly. Karen is reading beside me. The house smells of tea and peace. My name is Mira. I have loved. I have lost. I have rebuilt. I have grown. If someone asks me now, what is the meaning of life? I will answer, life is not a straight road. It is a journey of endings and beginnings. And if you are brave enough to open your heart again, you may find that love is waiting for you on the other side of the rain.